All right, we're recording. So, hello everyone. I am Sunny Von Mutius. You do not have to worry about my last name. You can just ignore it and call me Sunny. I am a 100% digital nomad. I live out of a storage unit in Orlando, Florida, and I travel full time 100%. And I decided to be super committed to this lifestyle, and I barter for a living as well. So not only do I live on the road, but I live in other people's homes, bartering for a roof over my head, food, all of the things. I'm a strategist. I have a really strong corporate background. I retired about 4 years ago from a Fortune 50 company. And now this is what I do. And I love it. And it's awesome. And I'm excited to talk about who knows what with the lovely Stephanie today. Do you want to? I've only met you once. I don't even know that much about you. So I would love to hear how you introduce yourself.
I know. So everyone has a background. Sunny and I were introduced by a mutual friend. And we got on the phone. We ended up talking for about an hour and a half. And then I realized that she was going to be in my neighborhood. I live in Oakland, so she was going to be in Berkeley. And I was like, we just need to continue this over coffee. And we ended up having a 2-hour coffee. And that's where this blab became birthed. So it's kind of funny, like Sunny and I have an amazing connection, but we actually are new acquaintances. So to introduce myself, my name's Stephanie Steidel. Again, don't worry about my last name because just call me Steph or Stephanie. I'm the founder of a company called The Right Brain Entrepreneur and a membership course website called The Right Brain Academy. I essentially am really passionate about helping people live a life of freedom and create their work into play. And so I do corporate workshops and I've been speaking nationally, but my truest passion is around helping individuals that want to leave the 9-to-5 and they just know that that's not for them and they want to start a business that they're really passionate about and that has a lot of meaning for them. So I help them make that leap, and we address all the nuts and bolts of business, but we also really go to town on the inner game, which I feel is the most important piece, is feeling empowered to make that leap. So I do that with the psychology of creativity and all that I know from neuroscience. So I'm really excited to talk about dreams and the brain and results.
I'm excited because I tend to be more in like the theoretical, philosophical. I definitely have a lot more woo-woo kind of spiritual elements to me. And I love that you have the background to actually talk about the science of it, because then it's like there's the marriage of the two, which is really cool. So I'm excited for this. And then I'm really excited to have Shy on here because you were really, in my mind, you're really courageous because you were just like, I see this is going on. I'm going to jump in. Which takes some guts. So I really honor you for having the guts to be a first-time blabber and jump in with us. And yeah, I'd love to include you. So like, tell us a little bit about who you are, what your business is, what you do in the world.
Okay. Yeah. So my name is Shayan Sagari. I used to do architecture and got tired of that after 5 pretty painful years, and met Stephanie at a General Assembly course that was for finding your, I think, passion in life. And she was there helping, and we got talking, and then I realized that the Right Brain Academy, which is her business, was something that I could really benefit from because I am in this moment of transition right now. So
you're a client?
I am a client of Stephanie's, yeah. And so we're working together.
And what business are you working on?
I started last week.
Sorry, I'm going to guide you a little bit because I want to get to the
perfect.
So yeah, just give us like the one sentence. What business are you working on?
Stephanie, I don't even know what to. It's rebranding of the marijuana industry to make it more friendly for females.
Beautifully said.
Okay, thanks.
Beautifully said. Love it. Awesome. Okay, cool. And where are you at geographically?
I'm in San Francisco.
Okay, cool. Awesome. All right. Well, I'm in Austin, Texas right now. I'm in a co-working space and it's really awesome, but the walls don't go all the way to the ceiling. So I have to kind of temper my voice. So if you guys get to the point where you can't hear me, let me know because I'm trying to be respectful of sound. Cool. All right. So rebranding marijuana for women, Right Brain Academy. And then I'm in the world of strategy, but also really reinventing and figuring out what I want to do. So we've got some pretty cool spaces to play in.
Yeah.
Cool. So Stephanie and I were in this coffee shop in Berkeley, like what, a week ago? Yeah, about a week ago. And we were about to jump into collaborating and figuring out how her and I can play together and create some things together. And I said something that got her excited, and she asked if she could borrow it. And then we were like, instead of blogging about it, why don't we video about it? And I was like, let's blog. And so it kind of evolved from there. And I remember what I said was something about the dangers of someday and how that can prevent you from getting into action. Do you have a clearer memory of it, Stephanie?
Yeah, we were talking about how both of us are really passionate in helping people. Well, both of us have actually lived a life where we are making things possible, like where we're not living in the, oh, wouldn't it be great if I could do that kind of mentality that we feel like, oh, I want to do that, and then we do that. But how we were noticing that this is not something that comes easily to many people. And of course, this is something I coach people on, and I think you coach people on that similar
different angle, but
yeah. But we talked about it in where it started was how it arises in communication, and how often we hear people say something like, oh, my dream is XYZ, or wouldn't it be great if one day I could, someday I would like to, blah, blah, blah. And how that's actually, we're so encouraged to dream. So it seems really natural. Oh, I'm talking about it. I'm dreaming about it. But that it's actually really disempowering to stay in that conversation.
Very much so.
Yeah. And what you referred to was how it makes a difference if you are saying, I am. Like when you're actually in action around your dream, you're way more empowered, because then you talk to people and you're not saying, someday, one day, I would love to do this. You're saying, I am currently working on this.
And what gets interesting, so I posted something on Instagram recently where one of my favorite quotes, I couldn't find an author of it, but I love it, where it's, be careful what you attach your I am to, because the universe treats I am as would a genie in a bottle.
Mm.
And so it's interesting because there's two different dichotomies. And I was just talking to somebody about this yesterday. So I was like, stop, use powerful language, it can make a really big difference. And their concern was, but I'm not actually doing it. Right. So it's like, if I say I am reinventing my home, right? Like I am reorganizing my home, but they're not taking action, it feels slimy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, so take an action, right? Find one action, even if it's you're going to spend an hour a week reorganizing your kitchen. That's one action. And now instead of saying, well, I'm working on, or eventually I'm going to reorganize my home, you say, I am reorganizing my home. And it gives you the power to be able to be comfortable in that language. But yeah, it doesn't necessarily come easy to people. And so, okay, so let's talk about dreaming.
Okay.
Right? So I look at a dream as something that is super playful and isn't necessarily in the world of reality. It's something that is so big and beautiful and amazing that it could or could not happen.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like you're playing in that space, versus a goal being something that is actually in reality, is attainable, and you're working towards.
Mm-hmm.
That's just me.
Okay.
How do you guys, what do you guys think of when you think of dreaming in the world of like language and goal setting and business, and like when you hear a dream, what do you think of?
I'll answer that, and then I would love to hear from Cheyenne. It's interesting for me, probably because of what I do, I don't distinguish them.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm talking to prospective clients, the first thing I do with them is I actually have them dream. I say, where do you want to be? What does it look like? I have a magic wand. Money and time is not an issue here. And because I don't feel that people actually let themselves dream. They stay in a very realistic mindset. And so they say they're dreaming, but they're really not. They're dreaming inside the box of what they know to be true. They're what I call limiting beliefs. And call me like an idealist, but I believe you can make your dream come true. And so I think like distinguishing for me between a dream and a goal, I guess I've just never done it. And I totally can see where you're making that distinction. But for me, it starts with the dream. Then you start taking action.
Well, so what I tend to do is say, let's start with the dream and get playful and get outside of those boxes or limiting beliefs. And then you create some goals that start to make that dream actually attainable.
Yes.
But it starts off in this like existential space where it's like magic wand, what? Like, okay, yeah, so like maybe I'll make $100,000 one day, maybe. But realistically, right now, I would love to pay myself $20,
Yeah.
right? And so it's a dream. It's like this big, maybe unattainable thing. But once you start to really play and dream and give yourself the permission, then you can start to look at, okay, what are some measurable goals that I can define to where I can then actually be in action and attach my I am to it and not say, well, someday maybe I'll make $100,000.
Yeah.
Instead, it's right now I am actively working on making $30,000 because next year I am going to make $100,000.
Yes.
Right?
I agree. Yeah, no. Then I agree. I think I use a different language. I probably just kind of take it into action versus you're using the word goal, and I say, what are the actions? Let's create an action plan.
Sure. And it's interesting how this goes into the whole world of language, right? Like that's where language gets really interesting because it's completely subjective, especially English, man. We have such a crazy vocabulary. So like somebody said, oh, I have this thing I want to do, but it's crazy. I was like, define crazy for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, crazy is like, you're insane to think it could ever, and they kept using these words like crazy and insane and whatever, but it's like, okay, let's put that into context. And so even like in this conversation, like I say goal, you say action. I think if we were to sit down and start actually writing some of those things out, we would realize that we're saying the same thing. Yes. But when you're in a conversation with somebody, if you don't take the time to you and I could easily spend this entire blab talking about, well, no, it's a goal. No, it's an action. No, it's a goal. Right? That's so fascinating to me.
Well, aren't we seeing that right now in our political climate? And, I feel like that's what wars are started over is actually, if you were to sit down with someone, you might realize that you actually want the same thing and you just see how it's going to happen differently, but that you actually want the same thing. Or
yes.
Thing.
Yes. And so going back to the idea of the danger of dreaming, right? I think it starts with, okay, well, what do you look at as a dream? And how could that view of dreaming be dangerous? Maybe your view of dreaming is totally empowering, but it's starting with, I think, that one sentence, like, is dreaming dangerous? Are dreams dangerous? Like, we start with what's dreaming and then what's dangerous. Yeah. So Cheyenne, what do you, like in your world, when you talk about dreams, kind of, what do you mean?
What's really funny for me is that when I'm actually asleep and dreaming, I have the most boring and mundane dreams that are very much like real life. I mean, the dream will be like, oh, I went to Safeway and I couldn't decide what shampoo to buy. I mean, like, really not creative, really not inspiring things happen to me in my sleep dreams. I am a really creative person in my waking life, and that's where most of my dreaming happens, is like, I guess you could say, in my dreams when I'm very conscious. So I don't know what to make of that. But I guess for me, the difference between dream and goal is very light. There's a very, and this is a personal thing. I think that usually I am the type of person where if I do have a dream, I'm very good at finding ways to achieve it. So all of my dreams feel very attainable, and I don't think it's necessarily because I am like ticking in that box. It's just because, like, I see it, I can, imagine it, and then I just kind of work backwards and figure out how to get there. I mean, I obviously have some difficulties with this, which is why I am working with Stephanie. But yeah, I mean, I read The Alchemist, like attaining your dreams and like working towards that. Yeah, the difference between dream and goal for me is very fine line, and I think that if you have a dream, like you were saying, it just takes a little bit of action to turn it into a goal that you're working towards. So.
Well, and there's also, it'd be interesting to look at, do your dreams, you said your dreams all feel very attainable. Do they feel attainable because you're a big person and you choose to have them be attainable, or do they feel attainable because you're not dreaming big?
No, you don't know. Like they're big dreams, but I mean, I just see other people who have done such big things, who have come from such like humble beginnings, or just like totally. I've just seen a lot of good case studies. I feel like the people who kind of came in out of left field, took something else on and were able to achieve it. So I'm like, well, if they did it, then I can too. I just have to take the steps. I have to, I don't know, do what they did, not literally, but maybe mentally, emotionally, whatever, to get there.
So your
I mean,
dreams feel big. Your dreams feel attainable because you're a big person. So you dream big, and
I guess. I mean, I think it's a big dream. What I'm talking about with Stephanie, when I talk about it with my friend, when like, because we're going to be partners, when we think about it, we get this feeling of like, you know, like, are we really going to do this? Like, this is so exciting. It's so big. And it seems, a lot of times it feels very like distant, but it also feels very exciting because we feel like we can do it. We're taking the steps, like we will do it. So I don't know. I'm just lucky. Maybe I'm an optimist, or maybe I'm resourceful, or maybe I just, my brain wiring is such that I don't necessarily feel defeated when I have like an idea. I get very excited by it. Oh,
awesome.
Yeah.
And so what about dangerous? What is danger?
Stephanie, do you want to do that, or is this for me? What is danger?
I have ideas too. I'm just facilitating too, so I'm trying to give you guys space to talk. So yeah, like I said, I think language is decisive, and that's kind of where Stephanie and I were going with the intent of this conversation, right? So let's start with the easiest thing, which is the title of the lab. Are dreams dangerous? Okay, we talked about what dreams are. What's danger?
Yeah, I think that danger for most people is ending up with less than what you started with. You know, so then like defining what that less or more is. I mean, when I signed up for the thing with Stephanie, it was kind of on a whim, you know, but I just sort of, you know, we had this conversation and it felt good. And she's like, okay, do you want to do this? And then, you know, there's the thought process. You're like, well, like, how much is it going to cost? Like, what am I going to end up with? Da, da, da. And I just said yes, because I was like, even if this thing doesn't work out, I think that what I'm going to learn from Stephanie is going to be something that will be able to like fuel me and feed me, you know, like worst case scenario for the rest of my life. I'm going to grow from it. So I think that in the end, I kind of convinced myself that it was a safe decision. And I was like, well, I have nothing to lose, you know, except for however much money or whatever, you know, I was putting into it. And then when I told my best friend, she was like, you did? She's like, wow, like I'm way more risk averse than you. And I was like, well, I just didn't really see it as that big of a danger. I didn't really see it that I was going to like go into this and either lose everything or, you know, nothing.
So dangers associated with risk.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
For me. Yeah.
Stephanie?
So danger, there's so many different words that we have in our vocabulary around, like, for example, risk. But danger, when I think danger, I think life-threatening. Like, if we were to put a scale of risk, that danger would be the highest. For me, when I think about someone being like, that's dangerous, it's like, oh yeah, I really got to think about this. Like, I got to really make sure that I weigh everything here and know that, like, this is a big deal. So with danger comes, it's like bigger, in the sense that it's something that you can't just do on a whim, I would say. It's something that you need to really calculate all the different aspects. That's what I think of when someone says the word danger or dangerous.
I agree. Yeah, I'm with you. For me, it tends to be more in the life-threatening camp. I still really love the wording that you used at the beginning, though. Cheyenne actually captured it in a note there. And maybe danger isn't the right word to be at the beginning of that statement broadly, but just the idea of danger or risk or something, the result being ending up with less than you started with. I think that's really brilliantly said. And I agree with Stephanie that with the word danger, for me, ending up with less than you started with is not like, that's like, wah, wah. Oh, wow. Whereas when I hear danger, I'm like, right, like it's like, it could change, it could alter the entire course of my life if it doesn't go well. And so to take it kind of full circle, if you are, in my view, in my experience of life, if you are dreaming where you are talking about what could happen someday, and it's big and grand and seems super unattainable, and that's all you do with those ideas, I suggest that it is dangerous. It could alter the future of your life because these big, amazing things that your heart desires are staying unattainable all the time. And so the future is completely altered because you're not getting what you want. And you're constantly like living in this space and talking about and like telling your friends and telling everyone about around you about how eventually someday, maybe, probably not, because it's too big. And it makes you really, really small. And then that does alter your future. That does completely change the course of your life because you end up living a small life. And so I think, and this is, I think, what we were trying to talk about in our coffee days, Stephanie, was the idea that just by changing your language and taking a few steps, creating goals, getting into action, however works for your brain, suddenly you're no longer dreaming, you're doing. And I think it can completely change the course of life for somebody.
It does.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't.
Yeah, no, please.
Jump in.
Yeah, totally.
That's so brilliant. I love how you said it because it does. It, like altering the course of your life. Like I think that's a really poignant statement. And one of the things that came up when we were talking about this was how everything we do, right? Like it can either empower us or disempower us. Everything we say can either empower us or disempower us, and we have a choice. Some of us don't think we have a choice, but then when we can see it like that, it's like, oh, I can choose to say this or choose to say this. And there's something really disempowering as you find yourself constantly saying you're going to be doing something and something that you want something and then not doing anything about it. You start to have a diminished view of yourself. And then others have a diminished view of you as well.
Because they're your support system. Oh,
yes.
Man.
Oh, you're telling everyone like, oh, you're talking about it, and you're dreaming. And then your friends and your family, people that care the most about you and would absolutely support you in making this a reality, are sitting there being like, when are you going to do something? And then as you start to continue to just talk and not do anything with it, not only are you disempowering yourself, like you're getting a diminished view from your community. And so I think that's the danger too. It's like, your belief of yourself, because one of the things I talk about in my work, and you can see this, I think even Tony Robbins talks about this, that your beliefs determine your actions, which determine your results. And then it becomes a circle, right? Mm-hmm. So your results then determine your beliefs. Now, you can start to work at it at the belief level. Like we all have some sort of belief that it tends to be running the show, that if we're not aware of it, we continue to take the same actions. But you can also switch it at the actions level. So maybe you don't believe you can have it yet, but if you start taking small incremental actions, you're starting to get results that are then going to shift the belief. But if you're not taking the action and you're just sitting in the conversation of the dream, then you are staying stuck in that limiting belief. So that's what I'm seeing too. It's like, it's actually a very disempowering place to just be talking about something and not taking action.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, I've been having this conversation a lot in my travels. I think too, that it shows you and the world around you what your priorities are. So if you have a dream and this thing that you want and you talk about it fairly often, but you always attach a someday, maybe, hopefully, versus an I am or I will or I'm doing, right? That thing that's important to you is clearly not a priority for you. And yet the things you are doing are making stuff up here, right? Like are fighting with your husband or spouse, or you're stressed about not having enough time with your kids, or you're working 50, 60, 80 hours a week. Then the things you are doing are clearly the priority. The thing that you may someday do is not, which then shows yourself and the world that your priorities are external things and not yourself. And I think I think there's a lot of evidence around that, taking care of yourself first and prioritizing yourself kind of then trickles out into the rest of your life. So I think there's something also very telling about your sense of self-worth and self-value and prioritization in life, when your language is consistently around someday, maybe, and not being in action around the things that are most important to you.
The self-worth thing is so huge. It shows up in like it's either the I'm not enough.
Oh, Siri! I love when Siri jumps in. It's always
Like,
interesting.
what? I didn't even. Oh, you know what? She probably heard me say something that sounds like it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was like,
Self-worth.
Join the blab. That the self-worth, something along the idea of like I'm not enough or I'm not worth it. I find almost every single person has a version of that, and it's rooted in something that's happened very early on, where we have an experience and we make a decision about ourselves. That's something along those lines. But I find it is universally human. And then some are able to overcome that and act in the face of that, or have other beliefs, such as like, okay, maybe I don't know if I'm enough, but I can find out who can help me. You know, like they have something that can support them. But I find that that's very common.
Well, and it doesn't go away, right? Like I've had I'm human. I've had a self-worth conversation my whole life, and I will deal with it and be like, I am worthy of having a healthy relationship. Woohoo! I have a healthy relationship. Awesome. I'm done with self-worth. No. Now I have to deal with, this is the body I get to live in. Does this body determine my worth? Okay, I'm a curvy woman and I love it. Woohoo! Self-worth. Challenge done. I'm done. Oh no. Now I have a business I want to start that feels really, really big. And am I really qualified to be having these conversations and influencing these people's lives? Again, self-worth, right? So I feel like every time as a human, every time we think we've conquered that self-worth conversation, it's going to come up because we're just going to move to the next biggest thing, the next layer of the onion, and we're going to have to deal with it all over again. So this idea of like, do you have self-worth? Well, yes. And I'm going to continue to have to deal with it. It's not going to just go away.
This is something, this is one of the biggest lessons I had to learn. And it's that we think that once something goes away, then we'll be able to take the actions. So for example, fear is something that comes up when we're pursuing our dreams. And people are waiting for them to not be afraid, for themselves to be not afraid. When I'm not afraid, or when I have the confidence, then I'll take the actions. And it doesn't work that way. Unfortunately, it's our brain, its sole purpose is to have us survive. It's 2 million years old. It started with like a lion's coming at me. Do I run or do I fight it? And it's very deep-seated biologically. So it now just doesn't know the difference between a lion and a really dangerous, risky dream. And so it comes up with all this stuff, which tends to manifest in the I am afraid, I'm not confident enough, I'm not enough, I'm not something, or I can't. And people are waiting for that to go away so that they can take action, when really the way you overcome that is by taking very small actions. You start to desensitize your survival mechanism, your defense mechanism, and you start taking actions. That's how you retrain your brain so that you can create new beliefs, and then out of that, the confidence, the self-worth arises.
I'm so excited to do more things with you because we're saying the same thing. I just say it from the emotional and spiritual, and you say it from the science, and it's like you put us together and it's like, prove us wrong. This is going to be so much fun.
I want to hear from Cheyenne, though.
I was just going to say, I'm really, like, especially with, okay, if you're trying to change the conversation of women and marriage, like you have to be playing in some of these conversations as you build your business model. Like there has to be some tie-in to self-worth and dreaming with how women interact with that. Yeah, what do you got?
Let's see. I mean, it's really, we're just drawing from our own personal experiences of feeling kind of like outcasts in the industry. You know, there are certain products out there, there are certain almost lifestyles associated with it, and we feel like the ones that we really identify with aren't included in that industry. And so, you know, we get, like you were saying, you get a lot of feedback from, you know, the whole self-worth thing. You might feel really great. This has happened to me so many times where I wake up in the morning, I do my Tony Robbins, you know, like meditation to get myself feeling good. You go outside and then something happens and it can just like totally dismantle you and just send you reeling and make you feel like you're going back down again. So we're always getting this feedback. And just as two, you know, like women in our late 20s, get feedback from this industry that we like sort of participate in, and we're like, yeah, this doesn't feel right, you know, like this feels wrong. This doesn't feel like we're supposed to be a good match for it, but why not? You know, like, why can't we participate in this in a way that makes us feel more comfortable? Like, what sort of boundaries are being set there, you know, by that industry? And like, you know, is that something that like we can tackle, that we can bring down just to make other people feel more comfortable interacting with it? So luckily I have, you know, my friend, my partner, who we're bouncing these emotions off of each other, using each other as sounding boards, and it feels validating. I mean, we validate each other a lot. We're like, yeah, you know, it's not just me, it's also you. And then we talk to our friends and we're like, okay, and you and you and you and you. And so you get this feeling of like, okay, like it's my self-worth, but it's also our self-worth as a population of people. So so was that the question? What was the question? It was
No, we're just jamming. We're just brainstorming. So you're good.
Yeah. Well, what I'm hearing, Chon, is that what you're creating is a shift for women. Like you are addressing, and I think women. Well, I think we all handle it, but it's talked about more in the female community. I think men also are all constantly battling this kind of self-worth, but we find, or at least I find culturally, that men seem to be able to ignore it and just act anyway. Something culturally where we actually support that, whereas we, for some reason, aren't for women, or at least I find in my experience that women are less likely to act. And there's like the whole other conversation about body image and how, like, what we're putting in our media. That's all.
I think it comes back to language. I think that men culturally are encouraged to speak in positive language and to own what's happening. I mean, and just maybe this is, I don't think this is the whole story, but as a man, you're allowed to step up and say, I am going to have a business in the marijuana industry, for instance. And it's like, okay, sure. And people are just like, whatever. Yeah. But if you're a woman who is like, I am going to own a successful strategy firm and be a millionaire by age 40, everybody's like, oh, you're cute. Oh, look at you with your blonde hair. You're cute, right? And it's like the way we're interacted with when we make those powerful statements is really different. And so then it has us like retreat. And I think that's shifting. I think that's shifting big time. But historically still, I think that language is still a big part of it. And I think that's likely part of why men tend to be a little bit less part of the self-worth conversation, because they're encouraged to speak in powerful ways, which even if they're still dealing with their self-worth internally, they're not having to deal with it as much externally because of the language element. I think maybe that's part of it, maybe.
Yeah, I think that definitely women, we do internalize what we hear a lot more than men do. And I think also kind of going back to the 2 million-year-old brain, where it's the men who were like out there hunting lions or whatever, you know, coming in contact with that and then being like, okay, it's like all or nothing. There's this risk. There's a lot of danger right now. What do I do? So, I mean, maybe even like historically, they just have more experience of dealing with that sort of like fear and then going up against something that feels very overwhelming and then like overcoming that. I'm not saying that like women are genetically programmed to not be able to deal with that, but I mean, I think that some of that is, you know, bred in us too. And I mean, I just remember even as like a little kid watching movies and things, you always see, like the guy taking the risk. The guy approaches the girl and asks her for her number, and girls.
And that's starting to shift. If you watch, like, even looking at kids movies, I worked for Disney for a while, so those are the ones that are in the front of my mind. So I think of like Brave.
Yeah.
Where there was the other princess was the heroine, and she was taking the risks. And even Frozen, the woman, I don't know very well. The redhead girl gets, is like, I don't want to marry who I'm supposed to marry, and she's like choosing who she's gonna fall in love with, and like we're even seeing a shift happen down into like the kids movies and stuff. But that doesn't help those of us who aren't kids anymore, because as much as I love kids movies, it doesn't impact me the same way, right?
Yeah.
So it's all very fascinating.
I'm excited for Wonder Woman, though.
I am too. I watched the preview like 7 times yesterday.
Yeah, I think that's, and it's been interesting. So there's the Ghostbusters coming out too, and I don't want to get too off track, but I think this relates to.
It relates, yeah.
Is like there's the new Ghostbusters, and it's all women,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just seeing signs for it. I'm like, that's interesting.
Interesting.
That I haven't seen a lot of advertising about it, and
All over New York, all over.
Really? Okay,
Mhm.
so maybe it's just me.
I mean, the firehouse is there.
Is there that cultural aspect where like we tend to see more advertising to support the kind of male hero versus the female? I don't know.
Well, there was a whole conversation about the lead in the new Star Wars movie being female and how there weren't as many toys and all of that kind of stuff. So I don't know if that's true or not, but the fact that people were looking at it and that people made a stink over thinking that she wasn't getting the airtime, I like that. I feel like that's a good sign. Because when I was a kid, the movies did not have any hint of heroines and women having a choice, and nobody was saying anything about it. There wasn't a conversation about why are kids being influenced this way. So I think it's good that people are talking about it and inciting action. So yeah. I want to talk just briefly. Do I really? Hold on a second. Let me check in. I was going to say law of attraction, but I feel like we've kind of circled that, and that could start a whole nother conversation, and I want to be sensitive to time. All right, let's just do it real quick. So yeah, how do you think the law of attraction plays into this? Go. Law of attraction, go.
Go ahead.
Okay, because you seemed really excited, Shy.
Well, yeah, no, but you go and then I'll go.
Okay. This is something I've struggled with my entire life. And I think this is something, okay, wow. Okay, how do I reel this in? Because I could be talking about this for hours. Okay, so I have always been the kind of woman who is what some may call, what I had never heard of before until I was starting to look at my dating life and how my dating life at the time wasn't working, is when I started to get interested in this concept of masculine versus feminine energy. And so I was kind of more of a masculine energy in terms of I was a doer. I'm a doer and I make it happen and I'm always giving, and that was kind of my more masculine energy. And of course, naturally I was attracting more feminine energy men. Not bad or wrong, but it was these men that I needed to take care of, or I was the one asking them out, or they making the plans, and so they never had a chance to stand into a different place. And when I realized that wasn't working for me, I started to look into what it meant to be feminine. And I was always a tomboy, so I really at first was resistant, because I was like, listen, you're not gonna see me putting on lace and girly stuff, pink, no. But what I learned was that this feminine energy is more receiving and letting go and leaning back, something I had never taken into consideration. And when I brought that into my romantic life, I ended up finding my current boyfriend, and it's a perfect balance. It was exactly what I was looking for. I feel that the law of attraction is very much that feminine energy. It's that leaning back and receiving and letting go, which I can find can be really hard for people that are used to, like myself, doing. And it's and I think there is a place for it. And I never had thought that that was there. Like at first I was like, what is this law of attraction woo wooey? But then here I am telling my clients to create vision boards, which talked a lot about in regards to law of attraction.
Have you read it? Have you read The Law of Attraction?
A long time ago. Actually, no, I read The Secret.
Okay.
So
I would encourage anybody who feels like the law of attraction is something that comes up in their brain a lot or in their space a lot to go and actually read the original law of attraction, because it has been morphed and shifted, and there's a lot of interpretations of it to where I think a lot of people, when they talk about it, don't even necessarily know what they're talking about. You're like, we're making assumptions based on context and other books that have referenced it versus actually going to the source, which is all made up, right? Like all of it is just somebody's interpretation of something. But there is an original book by Abraham Hicks called The Law of Attraction. It's great in audio.
So I read The Amazing Power of Deliberate Intent, which is another book that Abraham Hicks wrote, I think, about the law of attraction. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's great. It's so funny. Abraham Hicks. This is like the 4th time that's come into my space, I think.
And I won't get into it here because that could start a whole other conversation. But Abraham Hicks, in of itself, is an interesting entity to research and look into.
Yeah.
It's interesting. So I said talk about law of attraction, and you went to needing to be a space to receive and lean back in order for something to come in. And at the core of the original intent or the original description of law of attraction, it's the idea that like attracts like. Mm-hmm. So if you want to attract other doers and aggressive energy, if you are that, you will attract it. Mm-hmm. And so there are elements to it as you dig into the law of attraction. There's totally elements to be able to attract opposites and whatever, but like the core principle of law of attraction is that like attracts like.
But the thing is, she is a doer. Mm-hmm. And have you received a doer?
Yes.
So that's the thing. So by, letting go of that and opening yourself up to receive it, you got what you wanted.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, speak of the devil, I think my boyfriend just showed off in our blab.
Hey, imagine that.
Law of attraction.
My guy will often watch.
Yeah, I want to.
So at least he's here.
Yes, I want to allow other people to talk about this, but that's what I've started to integrate is the balance between the doing. This is what I want to say. I get the law of attraction, and what I've also heard, like John Assaraf talks about this too. He's like, no one's heard of a group of monks sitting on the top of a mountain and meditating for $1 million, and $1 million just falls out of the sky, right? So the element of action is still crucial.
Yeah, I would say that you're not going to win the lottery if you don't buy a ticket.
Right. So there's like the danger of the law of attraction, knowing that like it doesn't mean to not be in action. I think the law of attraction is about the being, but we still have to have the doing.
I agree. Anything to add, Shannon?
No, I mean, just pretty much what you guys have been saying. I mean, in the law of attraction and all of those similar kinds of readings, they say, think about it, visualize it, embody it, but then you also, you have to act on it, and then acting on it will also raise your energy and your, like feelings about it, and it just becomes that cycle again and then that's how it progresses forward. But
yeah. Totally.
How about you, Sunny?
I think it's so the law of attraction has been coming up a lot around me lately, people referencing it, and I'm noticing that a lot of people are actually referencing other books or other interpretations of, which has me, I'm in the middle of actually rereading the law of attraction because I just noticed how there's a lot of different interpretations and people are using it as like a phrase. And I love like the meaning of words and the actual definition of things, and so that had me kind of return to the original definition of law of attraction. So I'm like on chapter 2, rereading it, and there's so many writings by Abraham Hicks. I've listened to all of them, and so I'm going to go dig the CDs out when I get back to my storage unit. But definitely this idea of what I am I have to be in the world what I want to have around me. So the more adventurous I am and the more committed I am to my life, the more I'm attracting other people who are similar.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find that really intriguing and interesting. Hi.
Howdy.
Who are you?
Oh, hey. My name is Brandon, and I found out about this wonderful blab on Facebook because I was tagged.
Awesome. Awesome. We're actually towards the end of it, but we're very much just brainstorming and jamming on topics. So if you have something to add or questions, feel free to jump in. So we're talking about the law of attraction, and yeah, I think we would be remiss to not mention it after all of the conversation we've had about dreaming and danger and being cognizant of how you speak. And I think especially if somebody ends up getting their hands on this who's never heard of the law of attraction, if you're interested in the whole first 3/4 of this conversation, definitely digging in and doing your own research on the law of attraction is definitely going to open some things up for you. So there's that. I think too that oftentimes, so I draw this, I'm very visual, so I draw this analogy of, and I know I shared it with you, Stephanie, the other day. I think everybody has a junk drawer in their mind where they shove all of their dreams and ideas and innovations. And it's like, ooh, a new thing, a new idea, something else I could do. Let me stick that into the junk drawer. And it's like, it starts to get full. And then you have all of these things that you're talking about someday, maybe eventually. And I think there's something really powerful and enlightening and I think there's just something really important about developing the self-awareness level to go through your own junk drawer and really choose what you're going to keep and what you're going to let go of. And if you keep it, to shift your language into current empowering, like current actionable things. So just my ramblings. I think I like I said, I'm in a co-working space and I need to free up the room. So I do need to kind of move towards a conclusion. And so since we started off looking at what are dreams and what is dangerous, and the question we posed in this blab was, are dreams dangerous? Let's kind of wrap up by talking about how we think dreams are dangerous and what we could do to have them, like to make that a positive, not dangerous statement. How do you shift out of that? So for me, I think dreaming is wonderful. Where it becomes dangerous is when you stay in the space of dreaming, by my definition of dreaming, right? If a dream is an unattainable, unrealistic, big, beautiful pie in the sky dream, if you let it stay there forever, I think that can be really dangerous. It's when you start, the way you get out of the danger zone is if you start pulling down bits of it and turning them from dream into reality. And that's where you get out of that kind of danger zone. And the way you do that is by picking something, and to go bounce off of Stephanie saying about how you have to take baby steps and get into small actions and reprogram your brain. I think that's how you get out of that danger zone. And now I have Top Gun in my head, just so you guys can share that with me. What about you guys?
Yeah, so I'm in 100% agreement. I think it's as we've been talking about it, there's we talked about the culture and our community. Sometimes some of us don't have communities that we can dream with. That's dangerous. We have people in our lives that are like, that's great, but you can't do that. Like, you need to do what I did. And this might be something we get from our parents, right? And it's all from love, and they want us to be safe. But what they know to be true is, for example, go get a secure job and then save up and then retire, because that worked for them. Our economy that doesn't work in our economy anymore. We don't have that chance. And so this is why we're starting to see entrepreneurship. And there's a whole group of us that we don't want that. We don't want that for ourselves. But so we have to be careful about, yes, we want to dream, but also have a supportive community that we can dream with. One of the biggest things that I always recommend is if you have a dream that you want to make a reality is start to find a community that will support that. So if you want to start a business, join a community of like-minded entrepreneurs. If you want to lose weight, you can't hang out with your friends that want to eat pizza and ice cream all the time. You need to start to hang out with people that want to be active or want to shift their lifestyle. So it gets dangerous if you're dreaming in a community that doesn't support it. So I think changing your community is what you can do, taking the action as you shared. And one thing that I think is interesting is that as we shift our language, I think one of the reasons we don't want to talk about I am is because then we're accountable. Then people are starting to listen to us differently. And if you start saying I am working on this dream, your butt's on the line.
And
But
see, that works for me. Like, that's how I create accountability in my life, is I'm known as somebody who does what I say I'm going to do. And when I start shifting from maybe to I am, people expect it of me and it holds me accountable. But
Yes.
It's risky. You're right. It's very risky.
And so I think a lot of times people dream and don't do anything about it or keep it in the someday, one day, because it's safer. It's safer for their brain and no one's going to hold them accountable. So shifting the language adds an additional accountability, which is going to make you way more likely to actually follow through. So
you take that risk.
that's another thing to put into place.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Can I add
Anything
one?
to add, Shan?
Yeah, no, you go ahead. The purpose revolution.
He doesn't have, well, from where I'm sitting, he doesn't have a internet connection.
I think I just heard him.
Oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, I
Is
can't
he?
see you. I'm sorry if I'm ignoring you. Please go ahead. I can't see you. It says you don't have the internet connection to
Oh,
come in.
okay. A fascinating topic, and I'm sorry I just saw the message, so I didn't get a chance to jump in earlier. The thing occurs to me when I hear the topic and just hear what you guys have shared about manifestation and making dreams reality. Like, absolutely agree on the action front, but on the front of like being dangerous, this is where I go to like this sense of context. Like, I've got all kinds of dreams that are not appropriate to my understanding of the world, right? Like, I have violent dreams and I have sexual dreams and all sorts of things. And I think it one needs to be explicitly in relationship to the world as it is, to have the executive function to say, okay, well, this dream actually feels like it's aligned with who I am. It's like part of my purpose, or it's like an emergence of, it's going to move the ball forward for humanity, for the group I care about. So I think about highly effective dream followers like Donald Trump or like Genghis Khan, or they don't really have a context that creates any value for people. It's just like their own self-aggrandizement. And I think that's a lot of the criticism levied against The Secret, is that like it didn't question the prevailing material, patriarchal, whatever status that we have in the world. Like it just said, okay, from that place now just go create. But like the system that we're creating from actually makes the world worse for so many different people. So if I want more abundance, odds are how we're going to get that, it's going to destroy the environment, oppress women, minorities, gays. It's like, so there's have a big dream, but I think it also needs to come with like a sober context of what's going on in the world. Otherwise, it could do a lot of damage. I know it's kind of a bomb question right at the end, but okay, sorry about that. But that's where I went to when I heard about it.
No, yeah, and that's a really important distinction. What I'm hearing is that dreams can get dangerous when you're not taking in a larger context. You have to take in all the other moving parts, and I think it's shifting. We're seeing this in social consciousness and conscious entrepreneurship. But I think that's where we've come from, is like people pursuing their dreams, but at the sake of, or at the expense of other things. So I think that's a really important thing to consider.
Yeah.
Cheyenne?
I don't want to just parrot all the same things that you guys are saying, but really, I don't really feel like I have anything new to add to this one. I really agree with all of these statements. I think I mean, dreams can be dangerous if you don't act on them. I mean, dangerous internally, they can really hurt you. And I think like what Purpose Revolution, I'm sorry, I don't know your actual name.
Brandon.
Brandon, what Brandon was saying, that the context of the reality matters a lot if you do have a dream, and if that dream does come to fruition and it is actually harmful. So I don't really know what the rest
ask for.
Yeah, kind of be careful what you ask for. And I mean, that's why they talk a lot about, like those apocalyptic sort of sci-fi novels, and how there was a whole discussion about this. I forget where it was, but there was basically a request put out for sci-fi novelists to please put forward like a more optimistic look into the future, because that seems to be the direction that things are going. Like what's been happening in reality sort of is mirroring what these really like negative apocalyptic like sci-fi novels are saying. But so they're like, hey, how about something a little bit more positive, so that the general mentality is something, on the whole, like a more positive law of attraction, going towards something better. I don't know.
That's the danger of social media right now, though, is I think it's a brilliant tool, and I don't want it to go away. But right now, everybody's talking about all of the crappy, horrible, tragic things, and the consciousness is focusing on all this negativity, and it makes it so easy to just kind of word vomit to the world through social. That I think that I would love to see sci-fi novelists focus on a more positive outcome, but I think that we as a culture and a society and a race have a responsibility to do that collectively. So yeah, I'm really sensitive in my social feed to only discuss things that are tragic if I can spin it, right? Like, okay, this was really horrible, and let's use it as an opportunity for this. Or, you know what I mean? Like, I don't talk about the candidates that I don't like. I don't share anything about them, because I don't want to give them more. I don't want the algorithms to show me more of their stuff, and I don't want to give them more traction. I was in Orlando when things happened there recently, and I didn't talk much about it because I didn't want to give the world more things to debate, to gripe about. It wasn't that I didn't care. I did a lot behind the scenes, but I didn't talk about it a lot on social. So I think this does tie into the idea of dreaming being dangerous, is when you take your some days and your negativity and your stuff out into the world. It lets other people feed off of it. When I was in corporate, water cooler conversation could easily be about how draining the weekend was. All it took was one person to come in and say, man, I had a great weekend, for people to start looking for parallels to that. So I think we can influence that future in the sci-fi world and whatnot, as a collective, by choosing to focus on the good. And that doesn't mean you don't talk about the bad. It's just that you talk about it in the context of how do we shift it? How do we take action about it? How do we create solutions versus just griping about it? And people have their process and need to go through it. I just suggest it doesn't need to happen on social media.
One thing, I know we're running out of time, but is that okay? Do we have time?
Yeah, and I can't. And if Brandon starts talking, please tell me, because I can't. He's like a black box. I can't hear him at all. So if I'm talking over you, I apologize.
Okay. Okay. Because then I lost my train of thought. So this brings another important point, I think, around dreams is, some say what you focus on expands, or, what we look for shows up. So if you're looking for the negativity, all you're going to see is the negativity. If you're looking for the silver lining, the positivity, the compassion in the world, the good things that are happening, you will see more of that. It's called neural resonance. It's the idea
I love that you have a scientific name for it.
So like when you're buying a new car, for example, like for me, it's about a year and a half ago, I was in the market for a Mini Cooper. And so all of a sudden I saw Mini Coopers everywhere. And that's basically, our brain is always filtering in information, and it only can show us so much. Otherwise it gets overwhelmed. So it'll show us what we tell it to focus on. This is why I have
Facebook algorithms.
Yeah, exactly. And this is why I have my clients create vision boards, for example, because I feel like you need to really be clear on what it is you're going after. But if that's full of negative stuff and not the dreams, right? You're going to focus on the negative stuff. So it's important to dream. It's important to be really clear what that dream is, and to focus on it, to not lose sight of that dream. But if you focus on all the reasons why you can't have the dream, which is kind of the someday, one day, like, oh, I would love to do this, but
blocks. Yep.
Then guess what's going to show up? More reasons of why you can't fulfill on your dream. So that's what I also heard in this whole social media thing is,
and to make that like super actionable, if you go to my business website, which is wildflowerstrategy.com, one of my more recent blog posts, I think, there's a blog post in there about spring clean your social. But I basically go through how I clean up my social, and I really curate it. I will friend people, and if they're dramatic, I unfollow them, and I'm really intentional about what I follow as a business and who I like as a business. So my social feed is full of really positive stuff. I actually have to, usually my friends know to tell me when something horrible has happened in the world, because I won't find out about it on social. I won't find out about it in my RSS feed. And like, I'm not seeing a lot of the election crap. So my friends who I choose to continue to follow because they don't focus on it will make a post about how horrible things are. And I'm like, I don't see it. And the reason I bring that up in this context of this conversation is because when I did that with my social, it ended up rippling out into the rest of my life. When I started being really intentional about what I allowed myself to see in my social media feed, I ended up taking that same principle and applying it to my friends and the TV shows that I watch. Like, there are some TV shows I love. Like, I love the show Vikings. I don't watch it anymore because it's uber violent. And that was impacting me. Yeah. So, so sometimes taking a small action, apparently it's scientifically proven that taking a smaller action, thanks to Stephanie, can help. You know, you could start with your social feed, and that could lead to bigger steps in real life that then have you shift the way you look at your dreams and your reality and how negative it is.
Yeah, and actually, I wanted to just make a quick correction. I said neural resonance, but actually that concept of what Focus on expands is called reticular activation. Because, yeah, well, just in case people want to know that what we're talking about is actually this. But also, neural resonance is exactly what you're talking about. The more something persists and is repeated, the more it becomes hardwired in our brain. This is good news because then you can rewire your brain. But when you're constantly seeing the negative, the violence, you are hardwiring something in your brain.
Yeah.
People
ask how I'm so sunny, and I say because I curate my social feed and I curate my social world. I don't let the crappy stuff in. And it seems to be working because I'm pretty sunny.
Yeah.
Cool. I need to go. This has been really awesome. We should do this again sometime. I love this platform because it allows other people to join. We're doing it in a really low traffic time. In evenings is actually a lot busier and you get more traffic. But yeah, it makes it really easy to just kind of hop on and have a public conversation where you can influence others or not and record it. And it's really fun. So thank you for both of you as first-time blabbers being willing to use this uncomfortable format because it's new. To expand your world and play.
Yeah. Oh, thank you
for enabling us to do this. This is cool. I'm glad to have learned it.
Yeah, cool. And I'm excited to see. I would love to be able to follow your development. Do you have any like online presence yet, Cheyenne, that I and others could follow if we want to see how you start changing the world?
But probably by the end of September. That's our goal. So I will follow you, and I'll
hold on. Probably. Wait, what? Huh?
Well, that's our goal. Our 3-month goal is by the end of September. So
by the end of September, you will have an online presence, right?
Yes, I am developing the content to have a web presence by the end of September.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. And Stephanie, what's your URL? Where can people find more of you?
The easiest is www.trb, as in boy, e.org, which is short for the Right Brain Entrepreneur. And then you can find out more about me there. And, you can check out the Right Brain Academy, which is more for individuals. But I would say if someone wants to contact me about working together, to just, shoot me an email or contact me via my website. But that's the best way to see more about what I do.
Cool. And I already referenced my business website, but the best way to learn more about me is really to go to adventuresofsunny.com. That's pretty much my life and my lifestyle right now, which is also my business. So there's that. Cool beans. All right, well, ladies, you all have a fabulous rest of your week, and we'll have to do this again sometime.
Yes. Yeah, it was so fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.